What we learned about the 2025 Wolverines from Big Ten Media Days next on this week's episode of Michigan Podcast.
But there's going to be one team that's going to play solely as a team. No man is more important than the team. No coach is more important than the team. The team, the team, the team.
Looks deep for Anthony Clark. Waits for it. Yes, caught.
They said you can't be Ohio State. Now what?
Brady gets terrific. Throws it, and in. Touchdown, Knight again. Schultz just before Brazil got him. And a leaping interception by Woodson.
Harbaugh back to throw over the middle. Caught by Collier at the 5 on his feet. Touchdown, Michigan. On its way. It's good.
He's 5'7", 179 pounds, a junior at Michigan. But Jamie Morris packs a wallop, and he delivers for Bo Schembechler.
And here's your first play. Pressure coming. Sack. It is Glenn Steele, number 81, who fought his way through the traffic.
Option. And Robinson calls his own number, and he's going to score. Oh, an easy touchdown for Robinson and Michigan.
Win it. We're going to win the championship again because we're going to play as a team. And when we play as a team and the old season is over, you and I know it's going to be Michigan again. Michigan.
Go Blue, I'm Steve Deace. Welcome to this week's episode of Michigan Podcast. We'll be joined by the one and only, somewhat reasonable bucknut left, our good friend Mark Rogers, coming up here in the next segment. Let's begin, though, with what I teased at the top. 5 things I think we learned from Michigan's appearance at Big Ten Media Days last week. Let's start here with number 1. Sherrone Moore, effusive in his praise for one Bryce Underwood, the once and future, and the future is now, starting quarterback most likely for the University of Michigan, the top-rated quarterback recruit Michigan has brought in the modern era, and right up there with Drew Henson for the top-rated quarterback recruit that Michigan has ever brought in. He has been there all off-season long. He's been with the team since bowl practices. He's been preparing to be the starting quarterback, and yes, I know what a lot of people are thinking, including a lot of college football intelligentsia. Man, you don't want to start a true freshman quarterback in that environment on a night in Norman, Oklahoma, but this is not a typical true freshman. Since the year 2000, there have been 4 true freshman quarterbacks that have led their teams to at least 10 wins as a starting quarterback. And 2 of them, Jake Fromm and also Trevor Lawrence. So Jake Fromm, of course, inherited one heck of a roster there at the University of Georgia, but Trevor Lawrence did too. But the last time we had a quarterback recruit rated consensusly as high as Bryce Underwood, one Trevor Lawrence. So it'll come down a lot to the team around him, but I think Bryce will be ready. Doesn't mean there will not be some rough edges. He's going to see things from guys like Brent Venables he's never seen before, but I don't think we've seen a freshman quarterback quite like Bryce Underwood before, Chad Henne included. Number 2, this will be Michigan's deepest defensive line since at least 2011, or 2021, I should say. 2021 is what Sherrone Moore said. And he talked about, everybody said, hey, everybody was all over David Ojabo and Aiden Hutchinson. Remember, those guys left, and it was their backups that took over the next year, and they didn't skip a beat on the defensive front. Sherrone Moore talking about Michigan going 10 deep on the defensive line, 6 deep at defensive tackle, all guys weighing at or over 300 pounds. So there's no Kenneth Grant and there's no Mason Graham. And those might be the 2 best defensive tackles I've ever seen at the University of Michigan. I mean, they're especially playing together. As a tandem, we've never seen anything like that. Individually, they're up there amongst the greats that we've had a chance to witness, going back to a Mike Hammerstein as a consensus All-American 40 years ago. But Michigan has recruited this position so well, developed depth so well. We're a long way from Don Brown playing converted fullbacks at DT against Wisconsin's running game, if you remember that embarrassment. So Michigan will not have the elite star power, but in terms of total depth, it's going to be better on the defensive front than it was even a year ago when it was pretty darn good. Next, number 3, there are 16 receivers on the Michigan roster, and none of them have made a major impact in a winged helmet thus far in their college careers. So news just came out, for example, that the Indiana transfer is being given he's being given the iconic number 1 jersey. To quote the great prophet Keith Oberman, easy. I mean, that's maybe a little early for that. Maybe play a game in the winged helmet first. But I think the fact that this is even under consideration is indicative of how little consideration we have seen from the receivers that Michigan has on its roster. So you have to hope when you've got that level of volume, sometimes you make it up with quality, sometimes you make it up with volume in the business world, right? You have to hope with that level of volume, you're going to come up with 2 or 3 guys that are legit playmakers, just because the odds cannot possibly be that you struck out on all 16. Okay, but to have 16 receivers on your roster is a lot. Kind of goes against type for Michigan style of play, number 1. But then to have none of them have done anything of any major impact in a winged helmet in the course of their collegiate careers also speaks to yikes. So you just have to hope with 16, you come up with in volume 2 or 3 guys that become legit playmakers for you, especially with the star freshman quarterback. Number 4, the days of flag planting are over. Now, I have to tell you, Sherrone announcing this, we're not going to plant the flag anymore when we win. I have mixed feelings about it, all right? Because it made Ohio State players literally cry. And I enjoyed that. I also grew up in the Barry Sanders era. I kind of like the idea of act like you've been there before. I kind of like the idea of, beating you is just what we do here, that we don't even have to celebrate it really anymore. It's just how we roll, and no use getting all worked up. I mean, you don't get worked up every time the postman shows up. You expect that come rain, come sleet, come snow, come shine, right? So we expect to beat you. That's, so we just move on to the next. I mean, there's a subtle level of, well, not arrogance. I mean, it's rife with that, but a subtle level of smack talk there that is so patronizing and demeaning. I kind of like it. Okay. I also don't like the idea, though, that we're going to bypass us celebrating because other teams cannot handle it. That's a you problem, not an us problem. But if there was ever a time to retire it, after what happened in Columbus last November, Jason Avant fighting back the Ohio State football team to get the flag back, making their players literally cry like girls on the field. I can see maybe what's going to top that? Nothing. Make them lose their composure. The look on Ryan Day's face. Just sitting there watching his team just have a 3 Mile Island meltdown on the field because they couldn't take it. Having our special teams guys troll them with their own OHIO. I don't know. The more I think about it, I'm talking myself into a position I previously was opposed to. Because there is something poetic about saying, we don't need to do it anymore. Made our point. I mean, we can't humiliate yourself more than you're already humiliating yourself. Jack Sawyer's still crying. So we'll get to that with Mark Rogers coming up here in a few minutes. Number 5. Perhaps, hopefully, my negative vibes about Mikey Keene's health will be proven wrong. Now, this is not from something that came out at Big Ten Media Days, but I did hat tip to the Wolverine. I listened to their podcast at the Champion Circle NIL Collective golf outing right before Big Ten Media Days. And man, Mikey Keene sure made it sound like he's planning on playing, that he's good to go. I hope so. Because one thing that Sherrone did say at Media Days that disappointed a lot of people, which I understand, but I also understand why he said it, is yes, I know we've got a thoroughbred athlete here, but we cannot be running him out there without another viable, playable backup quarterback. Michigan does not have a playable backup quarterback right now. if Keene cannot go. The closest Michigan has is a guy that couldn't hack it at East Carolina. Jaden Davis is not a playable quarterback. Davis Warren, not a playable quarterback, won't be healthy anyway. So Mikey Keene, I think his presence and health is a key to unlocking the fullness of the potential that Bryce is going to have in year one. Because taking his legs away from him in year one, when he's still learning how to read defenses and everything else, just squeezes the field for him all the more. You want to make that full body threat presentable to the defense. But I understand also why they don't want to do that if they don't have a viable, playable backup quarterback. So hopefully Keene is right. He's not BSing us. Typically, it's the coaches who lie about injuries and not the players, which is why when guys are hurt, we don't typically get to talk to them and see what they have to say because they don't want to let out the injury information. So the fact they made Keene available to the Wolverine, I am hoping that means mea culpa, maxima mea culpa. I was dead wrong about that. My negative Nancy, nattering nabob instincts, which are well documented, of course, by my fellow Michigan fans. I can find the half empty glass. I would, in every situation, I would complain if I were hung by a new rope. Okay, so you guys all know that about me, right? I want to quit the game the first time the other team gets a first down and dares even kick a field goal. I think we're going to lose. You guys just know that. That's how I'm wired. It's built in. It's just my way. But it appears that maybe that was misplaced. We certainly hope that is the case when Michigan opens up camp here this week. Well, let's find out what Mark Rogers has to think about these 5 bullet points and more next. Folks, the best way to support us here at Michigan Podcast is to do so via our Patreon page, patreon.com/Michigan Podcast. We are posting picks there year round, whether it's Major League Baseball, whether it's college basketball, whether it's the NFL, and of course, college football. Our win total best bets, you would have gotten those, for example, before the market moved. About half the books in the last few days moved on Texas under 10.5 down to 9.5. If you were following us on Patreon when we posted that, you would have gotten that before that number moved, right? So we give you all kinds of great data and picks, PGA major picks as well. We've cashed 8 of the last 11 majors in professional golf. So if you want to support us on our Patreon page, it's just $10 a month there at patreon.com/Michigan Podcast. That's right, just $10 a month. Patreon.com/Michigan Podcast. That's patreon.com/Michigan Podcast. And thank you so very much if you're one of our supporters already. All right, let's find out what the other side of the Scarlet and Gray septic tank has to think. And there's not many options for that because they don't do a lot of thinking over there. They just do a lot of trolling, a lot of overreacting, a lot of cultic chanting and mantra repeating. I mean, I don't know how many bots some Columbus businessman has purchased in order to hear "Hammer is coming" in my feed 7,257 times every single day. At first, I kind of admired that level of persistence, but now, frankly, I am considering owning another gun. Hey, Mark Rogers, how are you? Good to see you, brother. How are you?
I'm doing well. Steve, you should know we win with talent in Columbus. There's not a lot of thinking, strategy, just roll out the ball and let the 5 stars get the job done.
We've been saying that about y'all for the last several decades. So good. Welcome to our side, Mark. Good to see that you can see it from our perspective, my friend. All right, let's be serious for a second. I just unveiled 5 things that I think we learned about Michigan, most of them from Big Ten Media Days, one of them from an event held right beforehand that ties into something that Sherrone did say during Big Ten Media Days. We'll get to these one at a time. I want to go through them with you, like I just did with the audience, get your take. All right, so let's start with number 1 there, Sherrone Moore just being effusive in his praise for one Bryce Underwood. What are your thoughts?
Well, I thought he was pretty reasonable and pretty calculated in his praise for Bryce Underwood. The talent's obvious. Don't need to speak to the talent. The players did. Max Bredesen and the 2 defensive players that showed up at media days and praising the sheer talent.
Ernest Hausman and Derek Moore, just respectively. Go ahead. Yes.
I'm sorry, what's that?
Ernest Hausman and Derek Moore, respectively.
Ernest Hausman and Derek Moore. My apologies there.
Right.
But yes, 2 accomplished defensive players for the Maize and Blue. Yes. So, yeah, what stood out to me was maturity, work ethic, first guy in the building, last guy to leave, texting at 10 p.m., throwing with wide receivers on the facility at 1 o'clock in the morning. So, we tend to hear all good things. For one thing, let's start with the premise here. It's media days. And all these teams sound like they're going to go 12-0.
Yeah, nobody's going to come out and say, listen,
Everybody
guys.
sounds great.
Listen, guys, we're going to go out there and blow chunk wads all over your screen for last Saturday in August. So prepare yourselves. No one's going to say that, right? So when I'm curious, because you hear this stuff all the time over there at the Voice of College Football, you've got correspondents and stringers covering teams. You guys are talking about this stuff all over the country. So, this is the off-season cliche. Everybody's bigger, stronger, and faster than they were a year ago. No one comes in fatter, weaker, and slower. No one ever does that, okay? Last year, Dave Revson on the BTN Camp Tour was adamant that Purdue could not possibly be the 18th place team in our league based on what he saw. They were 18th in our league. No, I take it back. They were 21st in our league. He was right. They weren't 18th. They were 21st in an 18-team league. They were 18 with a bullet. All right, so we're getting fed so much BS nowadays. So when you look at Sherrone's comments where Bryce is concerned, how many times do you hear variations of these themes pretty much all over the country? Is there something there that sticks out to you that might give you something unique in this particular situation?
Well, I would think that if he's not showing up and doing the right things, that there would still be kind comments toward the talent end of it and toward the development. He's still working himself into the system. He's getting used to his teammates, even more generic terms. I got to tell you, and maybe this tarnishes my scarlet and gray, but I think Sherrone Moore is extremely impressive. From the first time I really recall hearing him speak in a public setting was, of course, in Happy Valley, and I was less than impressed with that showing.
See, that's the one I was the most impressed by, but go ahead. Yes, I was greatly impressed. Yes.
You were greatly impressed. I was not. I was cringing and just thought it was a bit dramatic and overdone. But since then, and I watch the weekly news conferences typically very maybe the bar is set quite low by Jim Harbaugh because you get nothing out of him. You don't even know what he's talking about half the time. But Sherrone Moore's articulate. He's focused. It's well worded. It's not a lot of coach speak. Of course, all of us would say coach speak. There's just they're given too much time not to give coach speak because they don't want to reveal too much. So there's going to be coach speak there. But I heard a lot of detail in regards to Bryce Underwood and what he has brought to the table thus far and how impressed his teammates have been of him. I think it was Max Bredesen who said something like, I wanted to hate him, but I can't. And they're going to be roommates during August camp. So I took it as positives across the board. I would have expected more generic coach speak out of these guys, and especially more concerning Underwood if there were issues with his development.
All right. Number 2, Sherrone saying this is going to be Michigan's deepest defensive line since 2021, which of course is the Aiden David Ojabo line. But after we lost those guys, a lot of people thought we were going to take a step back, and then their backups came in the next year. We didn't skip a beat. All right. So no Mason Graham or Kenneth Grant tandem. I don't know that Michigan's ever had a defensive tackle tandem like that, ever, and will ever again. Frankly, we don't get those kinds of defensive tackle tandems in this part of the country very often, to be honest. But he said, listen, we're going to be a legit 10 deep. We've got 6 guys in the interior that are all well over 300 pounds. Maybe the top end guys are not going to be top 10 picks, but he made it sound like we're rolling hockey lines out there on the defensive front. What do you think?
Well, I think that to go back to the previous question and our conversation is that the other thing that you never hear during the offseason is that we lost Brock Bowers and we're going to have a huge fall off in the tight end group.
Right.
There's no way we can make up for him, when that's actually the truth. That's about the best, most egregious example I could come up with off the top of my head. And everybody would be fine with that. And we would understand, yes, you lost the best tight end, maybe the best in the last 10 or 20 years of college football. You're going to have a drop off. I guarantee that was not stated by Kirby Smart. It would be like, he was tremendous. We love him. He's off to the NFL. Yeah, what a great talent. But we've got X, Y, and Z. We're going to fill in. We're going to be just fine. The same thing here. And I also tie this to a point that you and I kind of agreed on a few weeks ago regarding what has happened to this Michigan defense from a foundational standpoint. What they determined and what they established in 2021 is now been repeated over and over and over. Rinse and repeat. And with the hires that they've made on that side of the ball, in particular, keeping it within the family.
Yep.
I can believe in the system now. It's like when Ohio State plugs in a new quarterback.
Yeah.
I can believe in
That's
that.
That's a good analogy.
System.
I mean, we're talking 5 years with 3 different coordinators, and the results have largely been the same. So, and I think your analogy of from Dwayne Haskins to C.J. Stroud to Will Howard, I mean, there's an established system there. I think at quarterback for the Buckeyes, I think that's a good analogy. All right, next, Michigan has 16 receivers on the roster, Mark. 16. And none of them have made any significant mark in a winged helmet whatsoever. Now, several of these are freshmen. A couple of them are transfers. With Donovan McCulley, they're giving him the number 1 jersey. I'm like, as Keith Oberman once said to Chris Matthews, easy, okay? I mean, I just kind of think, maybe let the kid play a game in a winged helmet that counts in the standings before we start just handing out to Anthony Carter and, his number and Braylon Edwards' number to people, maybe. Just a thought, all right? But I think it also speaks to they need someone to set the bar in that room as an example for everybody else. And with all due respect to the other 15 receivers on the roster, he's got the best resume as a guy that was, third team all Big Ten for Indiana or something a couple of years ago, okay? So at this point for Michigan, you just have to hope that you couldn't possibly miss on 16 guys. You just couldn't possibly. And that your systemic advantages as an institution in talent and evaluation are so good that 3 legit guys that are performers and playmakers can be found out of 16, that you're just going to make it up in volume. I think that's probably what you're hoping for, given the kind of talent you're about to unleash at quarterback.
I'm still trying to get over you quoting Keith Oberman. But I guess that was Keith Oberman, the sportscaster.
Yes.
That's okay.
No, that was actually on one of the primary nights, Super Tuesday night back in the day, before Keith lost his damn mind. All right, when he was a leftist but likable and not insane. Now he's just crazy. But yes,
he certainly is. And the Michigan offense, the passing offense. So I'm going to cut these receivers a bit of a break. Because if they run their practices on offense like they approach the games, they don't get any practice. So I don't know how you can expect these guys to be able to catch a football, run routes, do all those things, recognize coverages and adjust to the coverages mid-route, do all those things that they need to do, develop a rapport with the quarterback when you just don't flat out throw the football. So that's one thing. All right, but Sherrone Moore is committed to being an explosive offense and a balanced offense. And I think, I don't know if we're going to get to this in the questions, but I think the offensive coordinator switch from Kirk Campbell to Chip Lindsey is a tremendous upgrade. I think he is a great fit for this offense and what they want to do, from the power run game to, yes, when we hit you, we're going to hit you downfield and be explosive in the passing game. But yeah, you need guys that are going to be tremendous freak athletes and know what they're doing and be able to bail out a freshman quarterback. And with 16 of them, it just goes back to, if we took all the recruiting rankings from 1 to 16 of these guys coming out of high school football, and I know we're talking to a lot of people out there that don't believe in recruiting rankings, but in mass, I do. And 16 is a pretty good barometer for our wide receiver room. They've got to have a top 15 to 20 wide receiver room in the country based on recruiting rankings coming out of high school. So they're either not developing them, or they've just been so incredibly unlucky, missed on them. The wide receiver coach not getting the job done to some extent, or I just, again, have to think that it's the archaic style of play that they want to run to a certain extent, but of course we're driven to the far reaches of prehistoric football last year. That has brought back this passing game and the wide receiver unit as a whole. Sherrone Moore, as you heard, believes that Donovan McCulley is going to lift. He has set a tone, and he's going to lift the level of play from some of these other guys who Michigan fans were excited about, the Frederick Moores and a few other guys, the Texas wide receivers coming in, meaning a Texas high school player, Marsh, I don't know that he's going to do a whole lot this year, but I hear good things about him from people that know high school recruiting. So they have to be better at that position. They have to be better. And they will also be confident in a quarterback and probably a bit excited that they can get on the field with this guy for the next 2 to 3 years.
Mark, who catches more balls this year, Michigan receivers or the adult diaper Deion Sanders will be wearing on the sideline? Actually, I'm just joking because that was actually pretty inspirational from Prime over the weekend. That was actually, but since he was making fun of himself, I just thought I would join in. All right. Since you brought up Chip Lindsey, we're going to go from number 4 to number 5 and come back to number 4. All right. The fifth point about Mikey Keene, because Sherrone was asked about running Bryce Underwood. Underwood's up to 230. I mean, Bud Elliott, who's director of college recruiting for 24/7 Sports, has been saying since last year the closest thing to Cam Newton he has seen since Cam Newton is Bryce Underwood. All right. So he's up to 230, runs like a gazelle. And Sherrone was asked about running him, and he said, listen, JJ wanted to run more too, but we didn't have a viable, playable backup quarterback. So, we didn't do that very often, and he said the same thing about Bryce. You want to run Bryce more, then we're going to make sure we have another quarterback. And I think this is where Mikey Keene comes in. And I've been very dubious, because I've seen this rodeo with Michigan coaches for decades. The one Michigan coach that really told the truth about injuries was Rich Rod. Seriously, he told the God's honest truth about injuries. All the rest of them my whole life have lied. And they all won a lot more games than Rich Rod, all right? But Mikey Keene showed up at the NIL collective golf outing right before Big Ten Media Days, did all the media hits with the Wolverine and others, and they don't typically let the coaches lie, the players typically don't, which is why they don't let them talk when they're injured, right? Or let the other players, their teammates, talk about injuries. So I'm getting more optimistic that he could be playable as a backup, because if he's not, they don't have a playable one. And since you mentioned Chip Lindsey, if you look at his resume, he's kind of, he's had Gus Malzahn influences, air raid influences. But one consistent thing you've seen from Central Florida when he was the OC there, North Carolina when he was the OC there, QB run game was a big part of the offense, right? That's a part of his scheme, is making that a threat, making the numbers work in the box, because you have to account for the quarterback. Kind of hard to have an RPO if the quarterback isn't an option to run the ball, all right, at any point. So your thoughts on how Michigan will mitigate that and how much of a role Mikey Keene being healthy will play in that possibility, because I think it plays a huge one.
Well, I'm going to start with Sherrone Moore's comments, because you focused on his comments about Bryce Underwood and what we could read into that. The only comments I heard concerning Mikey Keene were all past career. They were all, this is what we believed Mikey Keene, and this is what he did. This is why he's here, but nothing about what he's done since. Now, I know he's been injured, so I'm not expecting, the arm velocity's up. He looks great. Of course, he's been injured.
And of course, he's bigger, stronger, and faster than he was last year, of course.
Bigger, stronger, and faster. And you
Yes.
would expect, which I got a comment to make about that as well. But you would expect there to be some positive comments about his impact, especially since he's played so much. The only comment I heard out of Sherrone Moore was basically citing his snap total, and that he's played a lot of football, and anybody that plays that much football is a welcome gain to the room, and he's got a ton of experience, and he cited some 2,000 snaps or whatever the number was. But nothing about, since he's been in the building, even when he couldn't get on the field, he was helping in X, Y, and Z manner. So I didn't know the information that you gave us concerning the golf outing, but that's what stood out to me about Sherrone Moore avoiding comments about Mikey Keene and his contributions. But Bryce Underwood's good from game 1 through game 12 and beyond, then all is well, because the backup quarterback's the most useless guy in the team until he becomes in one play the most important player on the team. And that's what Mikey Keene would be, hopefully, for Michigan fans. And I do think that Bryce Young should be and will be the starter from week 1. And I know that he's not Michael Vick or Lamar Jackson. He doesn't play that style of ball, but I would think he's a good enough athlete. And I've never seen him play except for the spring game to be able to run that RPO.
Which brings us to the final point. Sherrone saying Michigan is going to retire the flag planting. At first, I was very annoyed. Felt like we were kind of giving in to teams who just can't handle being beaten by us. That's a you problem, not an us problem. The more I got to thinking about it, and, frankly, my haughty, arrogant Michigan disposition began to kick in, which, frankly, doesn't need much of a nudge, if we're being honest. I got to thinking, what better time to retire it? I mean, Jack Sawyer's still crying. He's in the middle of an NFL training camp crying. Still crying. Like he was crying on the field. He's crying in the middle of an NFL training camp crying. And I got to thinking, you know what? This would seem like the perfect time to retire this once and for all. We made our point. We don't have to do this anymore. It's old hat. Barry Sanders, act like he'd been there before. But I want to get your thoughts about, and by the way, I checked. Vegas will not take any bets on odds Ohio State plants the flag if they win in Ann Arbor this November. They will not take any. It's off the board. Not taking any bets on that because it's approximately minus 27,000 are the odds, okay, that Ohio State will plant the flag if they win in Ann Arbor. And you know what? Go ahead and do it. Oregon beat us in our own crib. They planted it. You didn't see like, Mason Graham crying his eyes out. I can't believe they effing did that to us again. Okay? I mean, he just went up the tunnel, took his L. All right? Like a man. All right? And now he's getting booed by Cleveland Browns fans at their training camp. Right. So, Mark, what are your thoughts on all of this?
All right. I got to hit this strength and conditioning note real quick because it's funny to me that, yes, we have focused on strength and conditioning, and these athletes are coming here. You don't recognize them. They're cut up, and the body fat ratio and all of this has just jumped astronomically. Well, my thought is this program and this team won national championship 2 years ago. I'm guessing that team was in really good shape. What were you doing last year? What the hell did you do in terms of strength and conditioning that completely sabotaged the team? If we want to take these comments about strength and conditioning, if we want to take them bluntly, then they did a horrible job with strength and conditioning. And my follow-up question would be, what happened last year? What were you doing? Anyway, that aside, they're bigger, stronger, and faster by eons this year. Okay. Every
player on every team forever, bigger, stronger.
Yeah, but they just seem to go
faster.
on and on about it.
Yes.
And emphasize it. So planting the flag, first and foremost, it's just a silly, stupid thing to do. I'm not for it. I don't like it. And you can throw my team on that list as well. I would say the same thing about them. I don't pay attention to what's going on the field after the game. I'm off to the next game or I'm doing whatever I'm doing. But this one, obviously, I couldn't ignore. And so this was the biggest plant flagging review that I've ever done, 18 different angles and all of it, since Baker Mayfield, at least. And we didn't like that one either. No, I don't like to have a flag planted on my field after the game. And I think it's childish and immature and stupid. And I think it's just dumb. But for the losers, you got to take it. You got to take it, win the game. So I agree with both. I think both can be true. I believe that it can be childish, immature, stupid, just a dumb thing. Have some integrity, some class, get off the field, shake hands, celebrate, jump around, dance, do whatever you want. But planting the flag, it's not your field. And then you can't even plant a flag anyway. It's the dumbest looking thing because you can't plant the flag in the field anyway. It's artificial, so it just falls over.
I can think of a surefire way to make sure nobody plants a flag in your stadium. 100%.
Yeah, but that has never occurred in the history of football, Steve.
100% abstinence formula. 100%.
But that's never happened. That has yet to happen for anyone.
You could just not let them beat you on your field. That's 100% effective.
You can't do that.
That's safe and effective right there, Mr. Pfizer.
Yes.
Safe and effective right there.
But
beating said team so they don't get to plant the flag is 100% safe and effective.
If it can be accomplished.
And I didn't even spend 3 minutes at the University of Med School, and I knew that one. So good to see you as always, Mark. Thank you.
All right, Steve. Thank you.
All right, take care. That brings us to this week's X-Poll results. Do you agree with Sherrone Moore's decision to no longer allow Michigan football players to plant flags after milestone wins? See that as Ohio State. 59% of you said yes. I'm kind of surprised. 41% of you said no. And that brings us to our feedback of the week. Bradley Shtick says, it's not a milestone win anymore. 4 straight wins just makes it business as usual. See, I like that. I like that kind of smack. Just not even worth it, man. Been there, done that, bought the t-shirt. See you next year. Come get your whooping. I like that. I like that. That level of arrogance, that level of just insipid snottiness, just absolutely just douche-tastic obnoxiousness. That's Michigan fan. That's our native tongue. Things are going well. Things are going well when we speak that fluently. And that'll do it for this week's episode of Michigan Podcast. Don't forget to like, rate, subscribe, share, 5-star review. Help us to find, put your thoughts in the comments section here. All those things help us to find more Michigan fans just like you. And we appreciate you when you do all those things. You can also subscribe to our X page as well. Follow us there at Michigan Podcast in between episodes to keep up to date on all of our usually most negative takes on virtually everything. At Michigan Podcast on X, where the sky is always falling, no matter the score. At Michigan Podcast on X. Until the next time, I'm Steve Deace. Go Blue.